I'm just absolutely tanked. I cringe every time I think about this story. Welcome or welcome back. I'm Lady Hart and this is Lady Hart to Heart. This week we'll be talking about stage fright. Now this could be in the context of performing, having to give a speech, or even just having to speak during a meeting at work. Stage fright occurs in any setting where you are worried about being judged by others, and as a performer, yeah, it's something I experience a damn lot of. I'll be talking about some techniques I use to overcome stage fright in the context of performing, but this can easily transfer over to your career at work or any other setting where you have to publicly perform in front of others. I've been performing since I was a kid and I've been on every possible stage imaginable, and despite this, yes, I still get stage fright. Every performer gets stage fright, and dare I say, everybody at some point in their life will experience it. No matter how many times you've done it, it's still just going to pop up. It is inevitable. This can also manifest in lots of different ways. For me, I get trembling hands, others get trembling all over, sweating, increased heart rate. It's not cute. Everything in your mind and body is saying, I don't want to do this. And everything else in reality is going, yeah, you're gonna have to do this. Now, before we jump too far ahead, let's start by looking at some of the reasons we experience this. Now, from a fancy study website, they list the top 5 reasons of experiencing stage fright as unrealistic assessment of what is expected of you, underestimation of your capabilities, overestimation of the opinion of others, unrealistic expectations of others' responses to anxiety, and overestimation of the idea of rejection. Now, I'm going to compare all these things to a single performance I once had. Cast your mind back many, many, many years ago when I was a budding young burlesque performer and I was about to perform in one of my first serious paid gigs. Because it was one of my first serious paid gigs, I put myself under a lot of pressure to be perfect, to impress everyone, and really drilled in the notion that this was going to be it. I would never get booked for any more gigs unless I nailed this one. Now, the venue, a pub, was way out in the middle of the sticks, and when we finally got there, I met up with the producer, who I was pretty starstruck with at the time. It happens, you're just starting out and you meet someone with way more experience than you, and you just kind of sort of forget that they were once a beginner as well. So impressing that particular producer was of utmost importance to me at the time. So my nerves are absolutely everywhere. Everyone seems so cool and professional, and I just felt way out of my depth. So we run through tech rehearsal before the show, and I felt my routine had a pretty good run. I was happy with that, so I sat down to watch the other performers do their tech run. And then I started the comparison game. As I was sitting there watching them all, I was like, oh God, their routine is so much better than mine. Mine is so boring. Oh God, I'm going to make an embarrassment of myself. Now, before I go on with the story, there is one point that hasn't jumped out yet, and that is unrealistic expectations of others' responses to anxiety. Now, in my mind, this refers to 2 things. The first is when we try and mask those feelings of anxiety in an attempt to not let anyone else around us know that we are Nerve City, which makes 0 sense. And 2, the fear that the audience won't display empathy or compassion should you experience and show those symptoms of anxiety on stage. Remembering that every single other person has experienced this at some point in their life definitely falls to the wayside when anxiety and nerves are your entire existence. But we'll come back to that point. Now, all that was left to do was change into my costume and wait for the show to start. My nerves were growing by the second. I was in hell. I would have given anything for that feeling to go away so I could just focus on giving the best performance that I could. And so I did what many of us do. I decided that liquid courage was the answer. Surely just one drink will take the edge off and I'll be able to give the performance I know I can. Now you see, the problem is I'm an alcoholic, so I can't have just one. And so I started slamming back bourbon and cokes like they were going out of style. As an aside, this was the second last time that I ever drank. I have been sober for many, many years now. Okay, so the show starts and there's a few performances before mine, and then finally the host calls my name and I slink onto the stage. I'm just absolutely tanked. I cringe every time I think about this story, but here we go. Now, I'm just so glad I was not an audience member at this show, because I don't remember much about the routine that I did, but I very distinctly remember the faces of absolute horror from the audience staring back at me as I attempted to do the splits, and I can't do the splits. It was worse than that. I'm pretty sure I even started doing a lot of Miley Cyrus-esque tongue out kind of action, and pretty much I just came up with half an entire new routine on the spot. It was not good. The car ride home, no one actually wanted to talk to me about it. And that was fine because I did not want to talk about it. So that was my worst ever performance to this day, but also the performance that taught me invaluable lessons in stage fright management and adjusting the expectations that come along with it. Now, throughout my time, I have jumped online many, many times to find stage fright techniques that could actually work for me. They suggest a lot of deep breathing exercises, and those are fantastic if they work for you. Unfortunately, they just don't work for me. And no, I'm not going to picture the audience naked, you absolute creep. What the f? I've found it has just become a battle of the mind at this point. And with any fear or phobia, relaying facts to yourself can often help curb some of that anxiety. So I want to give you a few reminders that you can go over once those nerves start to kick in. Number one bad performance will not kill you. I'm living proof. Having one bad performance in the grand scheme of things is not going to make a difference. And in many cases, it actually improves your performance for the next times around. So in something that's bad, something very, very good can come out of this. And I think nothing is a mistake if you learn those important lessons from it and can put them into place in the future. But the stress you put yourself under to ensure you don't have a bad performance will kill you. Remember, absolutely no one is perfect, and holding yourself to a perfectionist standard is just an exercise in futility. Everybody has a bad day or a bad show or makes a mistake. We are human, it's what we do. So if you have a moment where you thought you could have performed better or spoken better in the future, keep that with you and you'll be able to refer back to it. Number 2, people love people who have a go. It is so hard to get up in front of people, and that is why I make sure when I am hosting shows, every single person that gets up on that stage is cheered and applauded, because that is one of the hardest things to do. Everyone deserves to be congratulated for that, and everyone loves to watch others have a go. You're more likely to face them supporting you should you slip up than any kind of judgment. And if there is silent judgment, it's silent. Number 3, this was one of the best pieces of advice I ever got from a fellow performer. It is a privilege for the audience to watch you. And this is definitely a confidence thing, but I find it is something that I add to my list of reminders, even just to go into that confidence or even cockiness, if you will. It is a privilege for them to watch you and what you have come up with. It is the same for everyone else. When you are watching someone, it is a privilege that you get to watch them and they get to share what they've made or done or said with you. I think that's just amazing. Number 4, I'm quoting Adamant here, ridicule is nothing to be scared of. I look like this. I'm used to people saying shit about me. But if you do fear the heckles of others, I find it very helpful to ask myself, could they do any better? And if they could, they are more than welcome to come on up here and give it a whirl. Could they have come up with this idea, put in the hours of work, and then displayed it as you have? No. Otherwise, they'd be up there where you are right now. Number 5, it's only 10 seconds between you and success. Now, there's this wonderful thing athletes have called muscle memory, where when they're training or whatever, their muscles start to know the action. We're all kind of familiar with this concept. I don't think I have to explain it. But it is the same with the mind, and that is why rehearsals are so important, and one I drill into other performers constantly. The more you go over your performance or speech or whatever it is, the more it drills into your mind. Even the small little motions that you start doing, perhaps you walk to this end of the room when you're saying a certain part of the speech, or you look up during a certain time to add emphasis. Those little movements start to drill in. And then once it comes to the time where you have to go and present it on stage, your mind will click into that mode within the first 10 seconds of you walking out there. And I know those few seconds are absolutely terrifying, but if you can get past that point and you've been rehearsing, it is going to slide right back into your mind muscle memory and you'll just be able to go. It is that initial mind shock and anxiety and fright. If you can get past that and get out onto that stage, those nerves are going. I promise you, every time. Number 6, that's 7. Number 6, at one point you wanted this. Now, this is something I keep with myself a lot, because you can get to the point where you're about to go on or you're about to present or whatever it is you're doing, and everything within your mind is going, no, 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 I do not want to do this. Nope, I do not. But think back to all the steps that got you to that point in the first place. At one point, you wanted to do this. And to honor that part of you that wanted to do this, you need to complete that step. Think of all the hours of preparation you put in, even just thinking about it, rehearsals, going over the speech, revising, editing, whatever it is you've been doing, even getting dressed and getting to the place or to work or wherever you are. That is a lot of effort. And that means at one point you wanted it. So do it. Which brings me to my last point, the official number 7. You can do this. Whatever you need to mentally to prepare yourself to just go out there and do it, identify it and do it. For me, it can be blasting a certain song on repeat until I'm revved up into that really, I'm such a badass zone, and you can too. It seems like an all-encompassing thing in the moment, but try and remember where you are in the bigger scheme of things. This is only a tiny, tiny little blip in your life. And once it's over, it's over. All those horrible feelings will go away. You've done the thing, and then that gorgeous relief sets in. Your mind is going to ask you over and over again, what if I fail? What if I fail? But what if you don't? What if you fly? What if this is the best thing that you have ever done? You'll never know unless you try. So if you're listening to this right before you're about to go out on stage because you need some revving up, you can do this. It is a privilege that we get to see you about to go and do your thing. Go out there, show us who the hell you are, and give it to us. We want it. Thank you for joining me on another exciting episode of Lady Heart to Heart. If you've gotten something out of today's episode, that is awesome. Please like the video below and don't forget to subscribe to my channel if you haven't already. Thank you for joining me once again. I have been Lady Heart and you have been an audience. I'll see you next week.